Professor Sean Meehan, Chair of the English Department and Director of the Sophie Kerr Endowment. Although we congregate in an unusual space this year, we are still gathered tonight for an important purpose, perhaps more vital given our circumstances. We celebrate the promise of Washington College writers. Our 6 finalists joining me in this video conference: Kailani Clark, Heber Guerra-Racinos, Gabrielle Rente, Saoirse, Mary Sprague, and Abby Wargo. Congratulations to you all on your achievements. We are very excited to have as our keynote this evening Christine Lincoln, graduate of Washington College in 2000 and winner that year of the Sophie Kerr Prize. And to introduce Christine in a few moments, I'm very glad to call upon one of her teachers and mentors, our colleague in the English department, Dr. Bob Mooney. Before doing that, let me recognize the important people who make Sophie Kerr events, programs, and the prize itself possible. Julie Armstrong, a Washington College English major and a finalist herself in 2015, has been marvelous as an assistant to the program in the Literary House for the past 5 years. Although we will miss her tremendously next year, we are excited for her as she begins graduate studies in the fall. I'm very grateful to all my colleagues in the English department who serve on the Sophie Kerr Committee, Professors Abdur Rahman, Andrews, Charles, DeProspo, Hall, Kesey, Knight, Mooney, O'Connor, and Rydell. That's a World Series quality lineup right there. And joining with the English faculty, as stipulated by Sophie Kerr's will, the president of the college, Kurt Landgraf. The president's involvement signals the importance we give to the literary arts at the college. We are grateful for President Landgraf's participation and support. I'd now like to ask Kurt Landgraf to offer greetings and brief remarks. President Landgraf?
Thank you, Dr. Meehan. And first, I would like to say what a pleasure it is to be here and tell the students how much we miss you on campus. I was given the privilege of helping to look through the portfolios. And I will tell you that as I read those portfolios, I remembered even more so how much we miss having you here. You make the college. And so congratulations to all of you. So I'd like to thank Dr. Meehan. I'd like to thank all those people who participated in the selection committee. And I would like to reiterate what Dr. Meehan just said. This is one of the most important things that Washington College has done for years and years. This is one of the single largest recognition prizes in America. And for you just to be finalists should be something that should be a long-term memory for you. Congratulations. Last thing I might say is I'd like to welcome back Ms. Lincoln. It's a real privilege to have you here. I think your favorite saying says it all. I believe your favorite saying is you have only one beautiful life to live, so make sure you live it that way. And the students that we'll be hearing from tonight have proven they know how to do that by virtue of their extraordinary capability. So Dr. Meehan, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And again, congratulations to all of the finalists. You are terrific people. We at the college are amazingly proud of you.
Thank you, President Landgraf. Before I turn things over to the writers, let me offer a few words of retrospect to set the stage for this night of prospects and promise. The Sophie Kerr Prize is well known, perhaps most for its size, the largest undergraduate literary prize in the United States, possibly the world, larger than the Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award combined. This year, once again, it is worth nearly $64,000. Let's see, a second. And for more than 50 years, Washington College and the English department have been truly distinctive in providing programs in literature and writing, supported by the Sophie Kerr gift, the other half of the prize. Writers and scholars brought to campus every year to work with faculty like Bob Mooney and students like Christine Lincoln. Walk through the O'Neill Literary House, as many already know, and you will be amazed, as I am to this day, by the legacies inscribed on the walls. Bibliographic buttresses, Jericho Brown, Henry Louis Gates, Allen Ginsberg, Colin McCann, Toni Morrison, Maggie Nelson, Catherine Ann Porter, Claudia Rankin. To my mind, the Sophie Kerr Prize is more distinctive. Sophie Kerr recognized that the future belonged to the imaginative endeavors of young people, and she believed that Washington College, with its literary programs, was the place to guide them toward fulfillment. This past fall, the English department celebrated the retirement of Dr. Richard Gillen, now Professor Emeritus of English, and we look forward to a college-wide celebration once we all return to campus in the fall. Like Dr. Gillen, my colleague Bob Mooney has played no small role in the significant endeavors Sophie Kerr envisioned and has supported through the years. English and creative writing professor, former director of the Rose O'Neill Literary House, the founder of our very successful creative writing minor, a novelist, editor, publisher, Dr. Mooney will be retiring from Washington College at the end of this coming fall semester. We will be celebrating his accomplishments properly then, but I'm honored to have him tonight introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Mooney?
Thank you very much for those kind words, Sean, and believe me, it has all been my pleasure. And I look forward to being able to be together with all of you. I wish I could see you all now. I miss you. I can't begin to express how delighted I am to welcome Christine Lincoln back to Washington College, or at least a noble working facsimile of Washington College in these difficult times. I relish this opportunity not only to present an astonishingly gifted writer as the best possible role model for Kailani, Heber, Gabrielle, Saoirse, Mary, and Abby, but to offer richly deserved tribute to an accomplished and admired and beloved member of our own community. Chris graduated summa cum laude from Washington College in 2000 and famously received the very prize being awarded this evening for showing success. This was also awarded prestigious honors that our entire faculty has a say in choosing, an award given to the senior who shows the greatest promise of understanding and realizing in life and work the ideals of a liberal arts education. Boy, were we right on both counts in choosing Chris Lincoln. She comes back to us today with that promise fulfilled beyond our most hopeful expectations for our students. With news of Chris's receipt of these awards 20 years ago, the New York Times came calling, then the Washington Post and National Public Radio, and for God's sake, Oprah Winfrey. They discovered and reported that this young writer, burgeoning with promise, had come to this gem of a liberal arts institution on the eastern shore of Maryland and excelled against formidable odds, prevailed against inordinate pain and suffering through a youth so filled with disadvantage, Chris herself still wonders how she made it past the age of 20. I often tell my writing students, the most important character you will develop in your literary career is your own. Writing saved Chris. Of all the beautifully complex characters she's created in her stories, her character is paramount. She writes as if her life depended on it, and what a life she is making by heeding the call. Within a year of her graduation, 12 of the short stories she wrote while at Washington College were published by Random House in a collection called Sap Rising, astonishing stories that, as Caitlin Youngquist recently said of Chris's work, braid enchantment with sorrow and hope. Stories that welcome you in whoever you are. Stories that do not judge but challenge your judgments and certitudes. Stories hungry for redemption for us all. Chris creates characters so full, it's as if we know them from our own experience. So full that she can and does fall unconditionally in love with them when she's writing them. She worries deeply for them, cries for them in their desires with, knowing she has to let them go into harm.
I think we lost. I think he's. I think Dr. Mooney is possibly signing back in. So I may. But we may also have lost. He's had a bad connection, on Wi-Fi connection. So, well, I'm gonna suggest we can bring him back in. He comes in, but Christine Lincoln, whom he was very eloquently introducing, and I think we got through most of it. We certainly got the gist of both your spectacular promise and success that you had, and the kind of remarkable achievement from the before you even left Washington College, and certainly as you graduated. And so we are very happy to have you back here 20 years later to inspire us, and we hope to. And certainly, this is just the beginning of connections in the future, in person, on campus, in the physical world, as we all return to that. So, Christine, I'm gonna invite you forward, because you are our guest speaker in our main event tonight. Before we get to the students themselves, so.
Well, I thank you very much. I thank Bob for that introduction. I wish he was here to hear these words, because without him, there would have been no SAP Rising, and there would have been no 20-year-long writing career. Bob was more than just a mentor and an advisor. He became one of my dearest friends, and he was a midwife. He helped me to birth my novel, but he helped me to birth the person and the writer that I would become. And I owe absolutely everything to him and to Washington College. And I want to thank Washington College and the Sophie Kerr Committee for inviting me to be the keynote speaker this year. And I want to give a shout out to Sophie Kerr for her incredible life and this standard that she set, this gift and this legacy that she has left. She has no idea, or maybe she does, of the lives that she has touched as a result of this gift. Certainly, when Bob said that writing saved my life, that is no exaggeration. Writing healed me, and it saved my life. But mostly, I really want to congratulate the 6 finalists for making it this far in the process. And I really want you to understand what an accomplishment this is. You should all be incredibly proud of yourselves. And I can tell you that I know firsthand the hard work and the sacrifice that you put into this past year. Well, we started a year and a half. I don't know if you guys started at that early, but for a year and a half, the effort, the tears, the anxiety, the fear, the sleepless nights, the self-doubt. I know what has gone into the masterpieces that you have presented. And so I want to thank you for sharing your art with us. I want to thank you. I've read your portfolios. I want to thank you for sharing your suffering with us. And I want to thank you for sharing your hearts with us this evening later on when you read. I'm really honored to be here. And when people are invited to speak, they always say how honored they are. It almost becomes like a cliche, but when I say that I am honored and grateful with everything that's going on in the world, to be alive, to be here is miraculous. It feels that way. And to be able to celebrate art and words and language and with these powerful emerging voices, I can't think of a better way to be in quarantine after 2 months. So thank you. Toni Morrison said, "This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. This is how civilizations heal." And she wrote that 5 years ago in an article that was published, I believe, with Huffington Post. But she could have very well have been talking about today, right? She could have very well be talking about tomorrow or 10 years from now or 50. And I agree with everything that she says, but I also understand and I make room for the anxiety and the fear that most of us are feeling today, because our lives are uncertain. Our futures are uncertain. We don't know what the world is going to look like in the next few months or year. But here's the thing. Our lives have always been uncertain. Our lives have always been fragile, but we have always been vulnerable, though we've lived under this illusion, this lie, convincing ourselves otherwise. And the truth is, there has always been, and there will always be a time when the writers and the poets and the singers and the dancers and the musicians, the artists must always get to work. And so preparing for this evening, a lot of memories came back to me, things I hadn't thought about in quite a long time. You talked about 20 years ago. And what I remember most is actually, it's not the announcement that I had been the recipient of the prize, but what I remember most and what has sustained me to have a 20-year writing career was the year and a half leading up to the announcement. I remember what started out as monthly and then bi-weekly and then weekly meetings with Bob Mooney, who was my advisor, my mentor. I remember sitting in his office telling him that I couldn't do this, that I couldn't write this thing. I remember staying up all night in my little tiny 1-bedroom apartment while my 5-year-old son slept in the bedroom and I was sleeping on the pull-out sofa in the living room. I remember that hideous brown carpet. I would write sometimes what I thought was like the bomb.com masterpiece story. I would email it to Bob and I would walk into his office for our next meeting, like so pleased with myself for what I'd done. And I mean, he would just tear my story to pieces. And not in a harmful way or in a mean way, but more like taking a seam ripper to a piece of fabric that had been sewn together incorrectly. So a seam ripper is this tool, and you very carefully, you cut away each stitch ever so gently so as not to damage the fabric, so that you can pull it apart and fix it and put it back the way that you envisioned. And so in one meeting, Bob asked me about a minor character that I absolutely loved, whose name is Inch. And he said, if I remove this character, your entire story should unravel, like pulling on a strand of thread. But that's not happening here. And in that meeting, he taught me how to fully utilize characterization. He taught me craft. And I remember I had to revise one story 10 times before it was deemed done enough to go into the final manuscript. And I remember sitting in his office crying, telling him that I couldn't do it. But what he was teaching me in those moments, he was teaching me to persist and to endure, to push through. So that year and a half leading up to the announcement of the award was, it was brutal. I was incredibly insecure and terrified, and I was constantly racked with self-doubt. And the truth is, I am still racked with doubt and self-criticism 20 years later. I am incredibly hard on myself and on my writing. But today, when the voices in my head are so loud that all I want to do is quit this writing business, it's that year and a half that I can go back to remind myself that I have done this before and I can do it again. And that's what has sustained me as a writer. So what I'm trying to tell you is this. Not winning the Sophie Kerr Prize or winning the Sophie Kerr Prize does not determine whether or not you are a writer. It does not validate what you have done and what you can do. You are the one who gets to decide that for yourself. So this evening, like, you can walk away from this event with 1,000 different narratives about who you are as a person, who you are as a writer. You know, if your name's not called tonight, you can walk away from here and you can say, see, I knew it. I told you. I knew I shouldn't have done this. I knew I wasn't good enough. Or your name could be called. And you can walk away from here tonight saying, oh my God, they're going to find out I'm a fraud. This is a fluke. I could never live up to Sophie Kerr expectations of me as a writer. And that's the narrative that I walked away with, that I wasn't good enough still, that they were going to one day find out and come back and make me pay all the money back and give back the prize. And it took me years to get free. It took me, like, I'm still freeing myself from the expectations of others. So I want you to leave knowing that you don't have to walk with that at all. There will always be voices telling you that you are not good enough, that you are not enough. They might never go away. So if you decide tonight that you are in fact a writer and that you are here to use this gift, you have to embrace the voices. You have to embrace the fear. You have to make friends with the self-doubt. Give them a name. Sing them a lullaby. Make them a pot of chamomile tea. And then sit down at your writing place and get to the business of creating a writing life for yourself, the way you have just done this past year. You've proven that you can do this. And the truth of the matter is, like, look, it's not about you. It's not just about you. The whole world has need of your gift. Margaret Atwood says that the writer gives the world an image of itself that it needs. Now more than ever, we need you. That's why you're here. That's why you were born a poet or a writer. You're a mirror that's being held up to our faces so that we can see what we have become and make the necessary adjustments and corrections to get back to what is right and what is decent and what is good and what is love. So, you know, I say writers are the prophets and the poets are the plumb line, showing us how far we've strayed from ourselves. Morrison said it best. Writing is how civilizations are healed. You know, I will tell you this. My life looks nothing like I imagined it would 20 years ago when I won, when I decided I would be a full-time writer. Yes, I'm a Random House author. Yes, I'm the poet laureate emeritus of York. I've had mind-blowing accomplishments, but let me tell you this. My greatest accomplishment today is that I know the names of every homeless person in my neighborhood. And I know their stories. There's Dennis and his dog, Ellen. So Dennis had opportunities to go into homes, but he refused because they wouldn't accept Ellen, his dog.
I think on it. I begin to erase everything I do not like. Months later, I am at ease. My brother is arriving home at 7:00 p.m., just like my mother always wanted him to. He doesn't spend late nights in the streets with his friends. getting drunk after we keep warning him about the dangers he already knows. He doesn't talk back to her. He no longer grabs food straight from the pan, nor does he wake up at 1:35 p.m. for his 12:30 shift, exiting our room with his hands in his boxers. The last time I saw him ignore my mother's pleas of listening to her judgment was the day of the accident. Months later, I am still at ease, I think.
Thank you, Heber. Gabrielle Rente.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Gabrielle Rente. My portfolio handles daily observations of family and lifestyle through journalism, fiction, and poetry. And today I will be reading a poem for you. I originally wrote this piece my sophomore year after my grandmother was placed in a nursing home for Alzheimer's. The month before that, I had the unique opportunity of being the first in my family to go back to Cuba thanks to a seminar offered by Dr. Schweitzer and Dr. Lampman, an experience that even though it happened 2 years ago, I'm still talking about to this day. I'm still getting over it. But unfortunately, this past March, my grandmother did pass away. So I rewrote this piece to honor her memory. And I realized that the style of my work has drastically changed in the course of those 2 years. So this piece is called My Abuela's Name Means Hope. Hope that may be living in between stripes. Blue and white, red and white, doesn't necessarily mean I'm the margin, but rather a sinewy bridge, feet planted, belly to the sky, hands to the ground. This is a position of vulnerability, yet your arthritic hands sing, in nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti, te quiero mucho, mucho, mucho. Signal the end of your visit with a cross marked on my forehead. When I stand back up, my vision dims. The world looks better upside down. Your mouth speaks only one sound, echoes of a convent in Venus. But these graveyard flowers were not planted in vain. I tried propagating my own blooms. Querida Mimi, Abuela, Esperanza, grandmother. Funny how we prefer the names children give us. Even funnier how gift labels and prayer beads mean more to me than film canister pennies or diplomas. So let's imagine that you forgive me. For when I stretched back with my hands to the earth, they landed back on a malecon. I was brave enough to try lifting. My feet from the steady earth you packed down so the house wouldn't sink into the mud. Handstands are for those who have lost their kneecaps to the sea. So thank you for singing all those songs about spring's colors and girls carving their names into tree trunks. They were reminders that you walked 3 miles after a wasp stung you in the bum. So if this were a contest of endurance, then I'll place the olive wreath on your head. As for your flowers, what have I done with them? The roots have established themselves in me. Hear how I sing, Recuario siempre tu quiero nombre, en nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, te quiero mucho, mucho, mucho. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Shersha.
Thank you so much. Hey, folks, I am Sirsha, joining you all the way from New Delhi. My portfolio is a little bit different, just like my academic career. It juxtaposed academic analyses of literature with creative work that was informed by the analysis. So I'm going to read for you a short extract of academic prose, followed by the accompanying poem. So here's a short extract from my English thesis titled Linguistic Disobedience, the Intactness of the Minoritized Subject in Contemporary American Poetry. Mahmoud Darwish's poetry directly links the colonized subject's quest for identity to the loss of land, written in his native Arabic language. Natalie Diaz, however, must actively subvert the processes of sense-making in the colonizing languages of English and Spanish to make a similar connection between land, water, identity, attachment in her poetry. In the prose poem, The First Water is the Body, Diaz provides her readers with a basic aha mukab vocabulary lesson when English fails her in explaining the land identity connection. She says, quote, "How can I translate, not in words, but in belief, that a river is a body as alive as you or I," unquote. This poem constantly slips into aha mukab to articulate the message, and in several self-reflective discursive moments asks, quote, "Who is this translation for? And will they come to my language's 4-night funeral to grieve what has been lost in my efforts at translation?" Unquote. Diaz's The First Water is the Body constantly navigates the gaps of languages to articulate identity despite the loss of language and land. But in doing so, it challenges the basic structure of Saussurean differentiation. Body and water are, quote, not unlike, unquote, each other, and thus their definitions do not depend on them being separate from each other, but in them being, quote, close together or side by side. They are same, unquote. Similarly, the signifiers for body and land in Mojave are not self-contained. One cannot know if a speaker is referring to body or land unless they, quote, know the context of the conversation, unquote. But even the desire to know is futile because they, quote, might not know we mean both. If I say my river is disappearing, do I also mean my people are disappearing, unquote. River and people as signifiers are not reliant on their definition in opposition to each other, but their interconnectedness, an ontological framework that does not quite exist in Western metaphysics and thus cannot be encapsulated in intact English. And now to read you the poem, it's titled To My Translator. To my translator, let us do what you call wondering and I call a search to know more. Let us descend down the steps of these lines. Dress in layers, the monsoons are unpredictable here. The alleyways often damp, wear comfortable shoes. Unexpected, unseen silences take root in the cracks of the steps. You could trip and sprain an ankle. The stone stairs at the entrance of my home have dissolved in the darkness like the sugar in my cup of tea. Come, let us build a night on the marble edifice of silence. Spread freshly laundered sheets over the freckled sky and light the twin candles of our bodies. Even the dew cannot detect the whisper of our moans. I have searched for the stones for years. Now I wander in the depth of your tongue. Maybe if I emerge from you, I will find the threshold of my voice. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Shirsha. Mary Sprague.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mary Sprague, and my portfolio titled Diorama is a collection of short poetic prose about interpersonal relationships, sexuality, sexual assault, and loss. I have 2 pieces for you guys tonight, the first of which is called Anniversary. Anniversary, 2012. You die on a Thursday, but the world does not end until Tuesday when your mother comes through my checkout line at the Safeway on Livestock. We rock her cases of Dasani water bottles onto their crushed plastic edges so the scanner reaches the barcode, and when she sees my class ring, a noise like losing slides out through her nose. She folds her arms on my counter and presses her forehead to the bagging area. My hands are too sweaty to wrestle the ring off my finger, and when your mother raises her head again, it is an effort that starts in her shoulders and ends at the creeping gray roots in her left side part. She pulls balance from her sternum, and it evens her shoulders and opens her eyes and flattens her lips to stillness. I can't find the right apology, but she beats me to it. Sorry, she says. Then, louder, I'm sorry. Do you want my rewards card now? 2018. That year runs out, then the months, the days. Judgment is on a Wednesday, but I sleep through it. I know I can't be the only person left, but the idea is convincing. The earth spins but does not move like conveyor belts without checkout lines, and without other people, I'm glad the ring's too small to pull off. That day, again, like the whole weight of your summer, black car before the AC gets cold, steering wheel almost putty, just sitting in it, breathing the heat like water. But when I finally get back there, I am two halves of 3D glasses, red and blue and red and blue and red and blue on the student lot like sheets. That day, those sirens are gone, but their patterns are stuck to my windshield. Morning announcements, and we were in the 11th grade, but you smelled like beer when you sneezed. Sorry, you said. Then, looser. Getting over it. Thank you. The second is called Peripheral Hearing, and it comes with a content warning for sexual assault. So please take care of yourself. Forgot to pull it up. Peripheral hearing. Like no glasses, night seeing, the static dark between my windows pulling weight and shape and malice to the crown molding, a slow secretion on my walls and ceiling, the feeling like cheating breath with this gruesome waiting, this weighing on my neck, in my throat, stuck in my bed again, the next time her residual hands palm my skin. In my bed again, the next time she bleeds from the molding, I am holding my own rigor mortis body beneath the knees and the shoulders, and we are not moving. Down the hall, the bathroom shower running, hand numbing. A cold metal spoon gets rid of hickeys. A cold metal spoon is hard enough to exhume them. The obvious association, her teeth like an offstage death at my jugular, so cold it feels like the color white. The other day, someone said my name, and it echoed down the hall of my skull in her voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Our final reading for tonight is Abby Wargo.
Almost forgot to unmute there. I'm Abby, and I'm going to be reading two poems from my portfolio, which is a combination of poetry, creative nonfiction, journalism, and academic writing that deals with a myriad of subjects, including trauma, memory, sexuality, death, and mental illness. This first piece was written during my sophomore year, and this past fall, it was published in the first issue of Electric Moon magazine. And so here is Cicadas. They infiltrated my Nana's house the summer I was 5, before I learned to be afraid of bugs for being creatures of habit. They colonized her yard. It seemed like the sun would never set on their reign, and I plucked their shells, freshly molted and crisp, from the dirt that had cradled them in the dark womb of its soil for longer than I could fathom, and I admired the carcasses of things still living. When they return, will I be ready to receive them again? I have since grown into something else entirely, but I will try to find that hole where I buried my sense of wonderment, encased in amber and resting in mulch next to their spawn. And the second poem is Lady Macbeth, and that one was recently published in Furrow Magazine's 2020 issue, earlier this week, actually. I wrote this as a part of my poetry workshop with Dr. Andrews in the fall. It is a blank verse piece based off of a performance of Macbeth that I saw at Sleep No More in New York City. Lady Macbeth. She's naked in the bathtub, spinal ladder pinned to rim, to be the edge, a hardened comfort. We all are watching water pour, caress her back that faces the crowd, susceptible, fearless. Macbeth, a hollow consolation, enters. For a moment, she's revived. On his leave, a violent cry rips free from hearty lungs, and then she's off and charging for despair. Her blood is on my hands. Her skin revolts in anguish against the thrashing lights. Rapture holds me there. She howls, so shrill it sounds redemptive. I exit Scotland into a passive city. Is every night like this? I feel her sigh, as if she stands beside me. Thank you for listening.
So, Christine, I'm going to jump in just for a moment before we turn to the final event of the evening. We did. I just got a note. We had some live stream issues. Which is we're flexible. Apparently, I think it froze during Heber and Kai's reading. And so I think best thing for us to do, since people outside the conference wouldn't have heard this, is to go back and have them read again, if they don't mind doing that. And Heber, so I don't think it was your family's Wi-Fi fault. You don't have to blame them. It was.
I am still blaming them. That's okay.
Should we go in order then again?
Yeah, so let's go back to the beginning with Kai.
Okay.
Thanks.
Should I repeat my intro or just the poem?
Please. Everything. I don't know how much of it came through, so let's be sure it's, we want to hear it all.
Okay. All right. Okay, take two. My name's Kai, and my portfolio deals a lot with seeking solace in nature and the world of animals. And this is largely because I grew up outside of American society. My family lived on a sailboat and traveled for most of my adolescence, and I skipped 2 grades, so I often struggle to find a place of belonging among my peers. When nothing else makes sense to me, I go to nature, where I can easily find my place in the universe. And as a result of this and my field of study in environmental studies, I grieve a lot for this world. And the first poem is about that grief. The title comes from my experience being certified as a wilderness first responder. It refers to a situation in which the patient is obviously going to die. The second poem deals with the other focus of my portfolio, which is finding hope when hopeless. I have struggled with my mental health and semi-chronic pain since my early teens. Often after a really bad depressive spell, there's a tangible moment where its hold breaks and you're able to feel hope and happiness again. The second poem is about that moment where the world snaps back into color. Injuries incompatible with life. The liquid spine and limp head say she did not feel a thing. It must have happened just moments before. A flash of light, a flick of pain, and then quiet. As the collision occurred, the car moved on, leaving a spray of orphan feathers to snag on the chicory and the hawk, to be held in my hands, mute and bloody as a secret, still warm on my palms. If they had stopped after, maybe they would have said they did not mean to, but the body would still be here, and I would still be here, to lift it off the asphalt, to say to the silence, I'm sorry, to say to the trees, I tried, explain that I did not see the hawk get hit, that there was nothing I could do, nothing I can do now to make this better, to take it back, to suture this wound of sky and let it heal. This is how the softness comes back. I cannot tell you how to heal the world, but I will say that there was a honeybee stuck on the bricks. There were people around wearing heavy shoes, and I was late, and I almost did not stop, but I did. I knelt with one palm open and placed her in the beech tree, and thinking of it now, I want to weep for the velvet kiss of her legs, her soft crawl onto the bark, and for the small, wordless thing that had me pause and open my fist. Thank you.
So now it's my turn, right? Yes. Okay. Hi again. It's me, Heber. I'm back for more. I'm like a telemarketer. You thought you got rid of me, but I'm still here. So everyone did it, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about my portfolio. My portfolio is a mix of prose and like short fiction, and most of it deals with my reflections and recollections on personal experiences and what I thought they meant, or just like what I thought they could mean, and what that's about me as a person and as an observer in the situation. Um, Tonight I will be reading Your Brother is No Longer Here, which is a flash fiction course. And it's a piece that was inspired by me having to. I'm sorry, I'm like very nervous, but I backed up my laptop before a factory reset, and that led to the whole me thinking about like retrieving things from a particular subject. And then my brother, who is like my brother, you know, annoying. I use that also as inspiration. So here we go. Your brother is no longer here. Your brother is no longer here, but do not fret. The procedure went just as planned, the specialist tells me. Your brother will be all right. He has been uploaded to the cloud. We are making sure that your insurance covers the cost of the new body. I follow her into the next room, where there is a monitor. There, my brother's passport photo. Now, she begins, this part of the process is fun for some people. For others, not so much. For the former, they see it as another chance at redemption for their loved one. In this case, your brother. My brother. Yes, your brother. Whenever individuals have their consciousness, their being, their essence, their soul, yes, yes, exactly. But here's the fun part I mentioned earlier. You have the freedom to alter your brother's personality, traits, habits, physical details, etc. before he awakes from his sleep. He has a horrific lisp. Boom, no more Daffy Duck. He's always wanted bright blue eyes. Whoosh, ocean blue irises. Anything you wanted removed or altered, it's at your fingertips. Why would I want to alter him? Can you bring him back the way he was? Arguably, yes, but our company always gives this choice to the individual's family members or loved ones first. Are you asking me to play God? No, of course not. God would simply let your brother die and claim him all for himself. We're all about redemption here. Second chances. Another shot at life. Think on it, and I'll come back in a few minutes. She leaves the room, leaving me with the mouse in my hand and a surprisingly accurate backlog of everything there is to know about my brother. I think on it. I begin to erase everything I do not like. Months later, I am at ease. My brother is arriving home at 7 o'clock p.m., just like my mother always wanted him to. He doesn't spend late nights in the streets with his friends, getting drunk after we keep warning him about the dangers he already knows. He doesn't talk back to her. He no longer grabs food straight from the pan, nor does he wake up at 1:35 p.m. for his 12:30 shift, exiting our room with his hands in his boxers. The last time I saw him ignore my mother's pleas of listening to her judgment was the day of the accident. Months later, I am still at ease, I think.
Thanks, Hebert. Okay, Christine Lincoln, back to you to make the announcement, to do something you are uniquely qualified to do. And once again, we are thrilled to have you here to do that. So over to you.
I have the envelope here. I'm going to open it. And this year's 2020 Sophie Kerr Prize winner is Mary Sprague. Woo, Mary! Congratulations, Mary.
Do I do my speech now?
The floor metaphorically is yours. Absolutely.
Okay. I am beyond honored to accept this gift and beyond grateful for my peers in the Zoom call. Kai, Heber, Gabby, Saoirse, and Abby, thank you for making this the most fun it could possibly be. Did you hear my mom scream? I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you to the people who have loved and supported me through it all. Mom and Dad, Olivia, Kenzie and Justin, the Washington College English Department, all my teachers and professors. None of this is possible without you. Thank you. Sincerely, thank you. And thank you, Sophie. She's right there. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah. Well, we're all joining with Mom and the rest of your family in spirit. It's wonderful to hear that with your family and friends loudly celebrating for sure your achievement and promise. And as we do for all the finalists, this promising group of writers and scholars gathered with us here, Kailani, Heber, Gabrielle, Saoirse, and Abby. Once more, I congratulate you all. And to family and friends of the finalists, and to students and friends of Washington College joining us tonight, most especially our keynote speaker, Christine Lincoln. Thrilled to have you with us. Absolutely. You gave it an inspiring oration that, as you were saying, this is the right time for this event. I think this was the right time for you, and certainly the right time for Washington College to have you join us and help us celebrate an end of a year that's been challenging for all of us, but we get to leave on a very high note. So we thank you for that. To Professor Bob Mooney, who was Christine, he did join us well before you finished, so he was able to hear, and we were very honored to have him represent the English department and also to introduce you to everyone. So 2020 Sophie Kerr, not your typical event. Perhaps because of that, maybe it'll be more memorable. Maybe 20 years from now, Mary or others will be back to join us and say, remember when. Though virtual in format, I would like to say, though, it's been as meaningful and as real as the words we have heard this evening from all these fine writers and students. Long may they resonate with us. Good night to all. So I don't know if this is streamed. That's fine, but I wanted to. I don't know. Let me check in with Mike. This can be like the blooper reel at the end of the Mike, do we? How does it work from there? Is the stream continuing, or? I don't know. Well, I just, as I had mentioned this morning, it's odd to not be able to kind of gather in afterwards and have a toast and whatnot. But we're hopeful that we can possibly do it in October. We'll see, but certainly in at some point in the future, get back together. And so I just wanted to thank you all for doing this, and